This highway in the heart of Hong Kong's government district is a key artery connecting the east and west sides of this global financial centre. But 3 years ago, it looked very different. For 79 days, tens of thousands of young protesters shut down swathes of the city as they demanded full democracy from the Chinese government. They shook Hong Kong, rattled Beijing, and their actions reverberated around the world.
During the Occupy movement 3 years ago, I was just exactly there in my tent. Although we didn't achieve good political results after the umbrella movement, I would say that it's a very precious experience.
Although the protesters failed to win democratic reforms, they sparked a political awakening that took them from the streets to the heart of power. Less than 2 years after they tried to invade the government offices right behind me, Agnes and her friends formed a political party and got elected to the Legislative Council, which sits right next door.
I couldn't imagine that I'm going to form a party, and I just thought that we can't give up in the movement to let the government, Hong Kong people are not really persistent on these kind of issues.
On July the 1st, Chinese President Xi Jinping will be in Hong Kong to celebrate 20 years since the city was handed back by the British. But opposition to Chinese rule is fiercer than it's ever been before. The official handover commemoration slogan is "Together, Progress, Opportunity." But to many young people in Hong Kong, it feels more like division, stagnation, and crisis. The territory was promised a high degree of autonomy and civic freedoms for 50 years under the one country, two systems arrangement. Many Hong Kongers feel that Beijing hasn't stuck to its side of the bargain. Alex Fan, a young barrister who advises the government on youth policy, says that it's Hong Kongers like Agnes who are failing to respect the deal by questioning Beijing's sovereignty.
One of the obstacles of smooth implementation of one country, two systems would be the divergent perspectives from the Chinese government and different groups of Hong Kong people. Some of the Hong Kong people wanted to shield themselves from being integrated into the rest of the China.
Hong Kongers are worried about Beijing's increasing interventions, from the abduction of booksellers and businessmen to the ousting of elected lawmakers who supported independence. The deepening conflict prompted Gary Wong, a budding corporate executive, to jump into politics.
What we miss in Hong Kong now is the middleman who can actually talk with everybody and be patient enough to reach the consensus among those groups.
Gary, an Oxford graduate who has worked in China and India, thinks that many young Hong Kongers are exacerbating their own woes by turning their noses up at the vast opportunities on offer just over the border.
The more I travel to the mainland of China, especially to Shenzhen, I see a rapid growth of technology. But here in Hong Kong, in Central, there are lots of investors, venture capitalists, but there is nothing new coming from Central.
The question for many young Hong Kongers is not how they can mimic the mainland, but how they can maintain their distance. Agnes and her party are pushing for a referendum so Hong Kongers can determine their own future, something that neither the British nor the Chinese ever offered.
I believe that our application on self-determination is not only about referendum. It's about how people in Hong Kong can have the autonomy and have the right to determine our own life.
Such talk scares Beijing, which is threatening to crack down harder on separatism.
What the Chinese government wants is only to control Hong Kong. When the Chinese government criticize us and say that we are doing things wrong, it just proves that we are doing things right.
All around the world, commentators bemoan the political apathy of young people. Here in Hong Kong, the authorities have the opposite problem. Beijing and its young opponents are bedding in for a long battle. It may not be a fair fight, but the activists are not prepared to back down, even in the face of the world's most powerful dictatorship. Ben Bland, Financial Times, Hong Kong.